In the US, when you get a hefty medical bill, what happens if you simply refuse to pay it? It gets sent to a collection agency and it harms your credit. I think they could try to force a judgment in civil court to garnish your wages or put a lien against your home if you own. But I think many times it just gets written off by the hospital. Just like any other unsecured debt, the creditor or a debt collector they hire could take legal action to recover the debt, potentially leading to actions such as wage garnishments. It depends on what state you live in. I am in a protected state, so I didn't pay it and it just went away. Credit score is at 755. It's been about 10 years. Half of the states have some sort of garnishment protection for the patient. Some states don't allow any garnishment. Your health bar gets drained. You have to fight the doctor. What's even worse is I woke up in the hospital after getting laced. I didn't ask to go to the hospital or have any of their treatments. And yet, I now have a $38,000 bill. Upside down face. God bless America. My uncle got a vasectomy, and when he refused to pay the bill, the hospital sent a guy over to knock up my aunt. They send someone to undo your medical treatments. I have some medical debt, and I've gotten calls about it. It was from when I lost my child, and point blank told them that I will not be paying it, as I should not have to pay $3,000 as a harsh reminder of losing them. Haven't had a call since. I can only speak from my experience, having been broke in the US and growing up around other broke families. Usually, pretty much nothing. They send debt collectors after you to call you a lot. It can affect your credit score if it's a large amount. If it's a private office and non-emergency, they might refuse to schedule a new appointment with you. I know several friends and family who have had thousands in medical debt, and at this point the collectors and creditors have given up finding them, and it's been more than 7 years, so it isn't even reported on their credit report anymore. So in the US, to save your spouse from a ton of medical debt when you die, get a divorce. I know. Sounds crazy. Not saying actually split. Just not be married anymore so your spouse isn't hit with the bills. Read a story on this once. In my experience, nothing. Got a $3,000 bill for an ambulance ride and never paid it. Never got anything from collections, never saw it on my credit report. Haven't heard anything about it in years. For some non-life-threatening procedures, the U.S. hospital will require an advance payment of 1/3 your maximum out of pocket. An example might be an orthopedic operation to be able to walk. The emergency department won't do this operation because it's not life-threatening, but your quality of life is diminished if you cannot walk. The hospital has option to finance this if you can come up with lump sum. It goes to collections and is reported to major credit bureaus. However, you can make like a $5 monthly payment to the facility before it's sent to collections, and they can't do anything. So I don't understand why people don't do this. Drama happens. Hospital will try to collect and will often be willing to negotiate a lower amount. Some people actually recommend missing payments even if you can afford the bill in order to make the hospital believe you can't afford it. Then, hospital can sell the debt to a collection agency, receiving only a small portion of the bill. Collection agency will take legal action and may garnish your wage. If bill is utterly insane, bankruptcy is a reasonable option. Bankruptcies resulting from medical bills are common. You can usually negotiate a lower price to pay it off once it gets sent to collections. It does ding your credit in the process, so it's not really the best plan. They find you and take your health away. Really though, the medical debt just follows you. It's another collector. More phone calls, more stress, shame, etc. Generally, very crummy. Depending on what state you live in, the creditor may have a program to forgive the debt. Don't count on it, though. The usual way forward is a payment plan over months or years. My parents never paid off my youngest sibling's complicated birth. Adjusted for inflation, it'd be about $680,000 or more if born today just for the one and not the other twin. They had terrible insurance. Sometimes you just die in debt. 67% of bankruptcies in the U.S. are for medical reasons. So this isn't hypothetical. Bankruptcies affect your credit score. The credit score affects obvious things like whether you can get loans and at what interest rates. But also less obvious things like whether you will be able to rent an apartment or find a job. If you have a bankruptcy on your record from the last several years, it can therefore be very hard to find a place to live or a job. It won't fix the actual debt, but I went through my credit reports and disputed any medical debts that were listed under a third-party debt collector as HIPAA violations. Never saw them pop back up. My brother-in-law had cancer. He was getting treated, but he got too sick to work. He lost his job, then lost his health care, then spent everything he had on treatments. An emergency room will stop you from bleeding, but they won't do surgery or chemotherapy. When he had no more money, they kicked him out of the hospital. He went home to his parents' house to die. You become it. Over time your skin becomes thin and dry. You notice lettering in ink in places it hadn't been before. Suddenly, one day, you wake up and you're a folded up piece of mail resting on a pillow. It's part of the gypsy curse. The same thing as with any other debt. You'll receive an escalating set of letters and phone calls demanding that you pay. If you ignore all of that, debt collectors will eventually come and take your stuff in lieu of cash payment. Civil judgment. Wage garnishment. Although in Arizona we recently made medical debt all but uncollectible. Because fuck them. They send you to collections depending on the amount. It's anything from reporting to your credit, which really doesn't do anything, to taking one to court and trying to seize one's assets. It goes to collection and sits on your credit for like 10 years. Some go into debt forever and others end up never paying and the hospital eats it. You get harassed by bill collectors and then they destroy your credit. They send it to collections, which could turn into legal action. You ruin your credit score. Collections. Eventually you are gonna want to do something that an 823 score helps a lot in. Then it goes to collections and you are harassed and your credit score goes way down. It just becomes a debt. I have 4 or 5 because I refuse to pay. Drops your credit score and affects your buying power and interest rates for homes, vehicles. Debt collectors can garnish your wages. You can be. It does not get right off as others were suggesting. Well, at least not in my case. When I was homeless, people would call 911 when they see me passed out on the streets from hunger and I'd wake up in the hospital. This happened on more than once occasion and I didn't care at the time about the bill because I didn't even had a home address, but many years after I still received those bills at my current address. I've already made deals with them and paid them off, but it did follow me. The repo men come to get their liver or kidney back. Was on my credit report for years, then fell off after disputing them since I simply couldn't pay and knew they had overcharged for many things. However, one of them was sent to court, so I had to pay that one. Lol.